Hi and welcome to What's Not to Like, and today we're looking at Tin Goose, which, as you may have seen earlier, we played on Thursday and had a really enjoyable game. Not without its moments of contention, but that's part of the fun, and it certainly makes it interesting then analysing the game afterwards. So we're going to talk about some of those things later. I'd like to start off just by saying that Tin Goose is designed by Matt Calkins, and it comes from Rio Grande Games, and I've great admiration for Jay Tumilson and what he achieved in the 90s and into 2000s. They've produced over 350 games of Rio Grande, and they set about bringing German games particularly into the American market and revamping them, often using the same artwork. And really, it was just a flash of genius, really, to get that amount of games going in one shot, because I think it brought about 30 games out in his very first year. And I think it was one of the kind of revolutionary points in the development of the games market that we know today. And certainly I think going on from there, it's opened up the doors to more and more games being produced. It's been very exciting. We've enjoyed lots and lots of their games. And by the way, he hasn't taken any of our Ragnar Brothers games yet, so Jay, if you're watching, just bear that in mind. This game is an airline game, aeroplane games, and there have been a good number of airplane games. We've played quite a few of them in different formats. I was going to point out that, strange, unlike railway games, there doesn't seem to have been any one game that's really become the sort of hallmark game. Like you've got the 18XX games, and you've got the Age of Steam games by Martin Wallace, which seem to have really captured a market and grown. The airline games always seem to struggle a bit. I think this is probably because unlike a railway game where you build something on the map and you've got your railway lines connecting things up, in an airline game, of course, you don't get that sense of building your own network in quite the same way. Obviously you can see the airlines, but the very fact the physicality of a railway line is not there in airline games, I think it makes quite a big difference to people's sort of commitment to the game and feeling of achieving something. So maybe that's the underlying thing. I think it's great that people keep on trying to make airline games, and I think this is a very good one. Now, the striking feature about this particular airline game is that it doesn't at any point have these little aeroplanes flying as such, not what I call flying. These represent the airline terminus at various airports in America, different cities, but they don't actually move across the map. You don't get a sense of that. Slightly you do when you get the medium range and long range aircraft, but it's really just placing one of these markers into a city and that's it. So you don't get any pick up and deliver type mechanics in this game, and I think that's probably the strength of the game, and it works really, really well. What they do very well in this game is they develop the aircraft, and I think this is a really nice, neat system. You have short range aircraft which can only travel down the black lines, medium which go from hex to hex, and long range which can go anywhere on the board. And as the game progresses, as you'll see, there's different coloured cards because there are 3 eras, and that corresponds to things up there as well. So very nicely develops the game, sense of the aircraft getting better. They also carry different hazards on them, hazard being the flames and how much oil they're burning. So those two come into the cards we might use later, which are sort of damage cards in the game, how you can create damage on other players. Another factor of this airline development is that as you develop a new fleet of aircraft, you're going to place them on one of these 5 initial cards that you're given, which are sort of elements in the game which kind of don't really help you too much. So, for example, you have to start the game with always taking 1 income out of your 3 actions. One of the actions has to be to take an income increase, which is not too bad, but it's good to be able to do all 3 actions as you choose. So if you were to buy this fleet here, you place it on top of that, and now suddenly you don't have to abide by that rule. You can do the 3 actions as you so wish. So there are 5 different ones of those, and I think that gives another sense of your airline improving in various ways. So another nice little feature of the game. So the game itself really is a finance game, in that it's a very tight series of decisions you've got to make about how much money you're going to spend and how much money you're going to draw back as income. The critical decisions are the auctions in the game. To buy a fleet, you must auction against other players. It's a once round auction, and the person who proposes a fleet from their hand of cards gets the last bid. So they can always outbid if they've got the cash there, but it makes for a very aggressive bidding system. It works really well. It's also got the finance at where you place these aircraft. You'll see that these buildings are here, and you get some income generated immediately you reach one of those destinations there. Also, as you go into more and more cities, your general income increases on the track here. So you want to get this income up as far as you can in the game, because there's victory points as well for that at the end, plus the obvious advantage of money. So it's a real nice finance give and go sort of game. You've also got, as I said earlier, these damage cards where you can affect other players. So there are 3 of those. There's Crash, and what this does, it's a cash payment for depending on where your hazard marker is on this track. Similarly, oil. If you have a very expensive fleet in terms of use of oil, you'll be paying out more money. If you're more oil efficient, you can save some money, so you can play that against other players effectively. And then finally, strike, which is you have some what are called labour chips, and the person who, it's another bidding system basically. You're putting pressure on other players in how they can use their money, and you're always trying to maximise yours. And at the end of the game, it's all about how much money you've got. So, terrific financial management game. Now we'll come to that third thing I want to talk about, which is this first player conundrum, which if you watch the preview, kind of dominated our thinking at the end of the game. Is it better to go first in the game? And is it too good to go first in the game is really the question. So let's have a look at some of those areas there. And I thought there are certain things to take into consideration. First of all, this is a game where there are a set number of turns. There are 7 turns in the game. Every player gets 7 turns. So that's a good thing in terms of the first player isn't going to have more turns than any other player. So that's a positive in that. However, being that there are only 7 turns, that's kind of a negative factor in that there isn't time in the game to undo any great advantage a first player might have. If you're playing a game that's got 20-30 turns, then after 3 or 4 turns, that could dilute the effect really. You're not going to have any major thing by the end of 20 turns affecting the way you're playing the game or benefiting from the game. But with only 7 turns, if there is any great advantage, then it's still probably likely to be a big advantage at the end of the 7th turn. So having looked at the sort of front end of the game, let's look at the rear end of the game. Are there any advantages in going last at the end of the game? Now, there might be some advantages going last at the start of the game, but for the sake of this video, I'll just tell you I don't think there are any, particularly at the front of the game, but I think there are some possibly at the end of the game. This international track over here is it's one of those quite simple system whereby the person with the most aircraft on there will get an advantage over those with less aircraft. Not a huge advantage, but a significant one. It could well be that going the last player, you can look at that track and say, it's worth me buying into that. I can make a decision on that at the end of the game because nobody else is going to be able to buy on there. I'll get a slight advantage. Similarly, at the end of the game, you might be able to manage the catastrophe threat better. These damage cards here. If you are the last player, you know nobody else is going to play an oil card against you or going to play a crash card against you because there isn't anybody else to do it. Similarly, you might decide it's now worth me while playing this card. You can see how everybody else is stacked up at the end. You've got a bit of an angle at the end of the game there, so that could be an advantage as well to the last player. So let's go back again to the front of the game and try and explain to you what the advantages are of going first, and then we'll try and weigh up which is the better really, first or last. So the advantage at the start of the game is that you get to place your aircraft on the airmail route that you've chosen. You have an auction at the beginning of the game. For anybody who doesn't know, you have an auction, and the person who's got wins the auction gets first choice. So you can place your aircraft into the city of your choice from those 5 cards, and that can be a real advantage because you could have in your hand a card that has the same, down this side here, the same city as here, and that gives you an immediate shift of 2 on the income track here, which is it's very advantageous. Also, you can be very close to the cities you want to go to get extra income from them, and by going there, you're putting pressure on other players. Similarly, when you are in this position, you can get to those cities first. You can jump in with your aircraft, and the next player in, let me say, is here. If he goes into there, he's going to get an income loss on this track as well. His income marker is going to go down. So you get the jump on other players by being first player, and that's a very big advantage. So is it better to go first or last? Almost certainly first, and certainly it feels that way. So we've got to offset that then against the auction. So by going first, you will win. You've had to win the auction, so you've got to place more money in the auction to beat other players. So you're into a situation of making a critical decision at the start of the game, which is all very exciting gameplay, and it's great for players who know the game well and want to jump in and get back into that nitty-gritty straight away, a really tense situation. It's very hard for people like Tim, who've never played the game before. He has no idea how to make that first bit. So it's a game that is going to replay well for that reason, but it's also a game that's kind of hard to introduce to new players with experienced players playing at the same time. Overall, though, I think it's a great example of an airline game and a really good financial management game. So having played this game 4 or 5 times, I still haven't really mastered the start of the game, and this last game I certainly didn't do any better than previously, and so I've tried to analyse what I did wrong. Gary won the auction, which meant that he was able to match up his airmail route, this city here, to one of his cards in his hand, and get a 2-point shift on this track. None of it, let's say myself, Chris and Tim, none of us had a decent start, a starting hand, and that's possibly another kind of difficulty with the game, is if you don't get the cards that really work out well to match up these bonuses on the cards here, it's quite difficult. But having allowed Gary to get the first bid at fairly cheap, what we then made a mistake with was that we allowed him then to successfully bid for his first airline. He played that airline, and what we should have realised was that if he got that first airline out and claimed it, his first move would be, as it was, to cover up this unproductive investments card. And as you can see on here, he gets $30 straight away for doing that. What does that mean? Well, it meant that not only did he get the position on the map he wanted, but he was able to reclaim money straight away, get the bonus in his hand, and get some income for the cities he was able to visit straight away. So in fact, after his first turn, not only had he made a good start on this income track, got himself in position here to get the cities first, he'd also actually got more cash than anybody else. So he was in a prime position to dictate the game for at least another couple of turns, which is what he did. And as a result, he won the game really on his very first turn. So how can we deal with that? Well, we need to know the game better, and we need to be really on the ball from the start of the game to counter any move like that. The second thing, though, that I'd like to mention in this afterthought is that there is a taboo amongst gamers, and this game kind of demonstrates it. And this is the taboo that players, once they sit down at table, they don't move. And I think one of the things that might just improve this game is if you broke that taboo and said, right, whoever makes the first bid gets to go first player. Whoever gets the second highest bid, though, changes places and comes and sits in the second place around the table. Because it's quite possible with this game that Gary could win with the first bid. The second bidder could bid one less than Gary and end up going last. In this case, Chris did go last, and he was the second bidder. He was actually tied with Tim and myself. But it could have been that he was actually a higher bid than Tim and myself, and he would still have been last place. I don't think that is too difficult a thing to unpack and put right. But, as I say, it's quite a taboo, isn't it? When you get to games night, you sit down, you get comfy, get your beer in your hand or whatever, and you don't move until the end of the game. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed watching What's Not to Like, and catch up again with you very soon. Thank you.